Okay, let us dig a little bit deeper on these stories that we're talking about today. Let's take a look at our political panel. Lettice Bromovsky, a political commentator, joins me, as does Professor Scott Lucas, Professor of International Politics at the University College Dublin. Good afternoon to you both. You see what I tried to do? I said calm. Oh, my
They're not listening. They're not listening.
Why do people get so angry? I don't understand. Why people didn't get this angry when it came to Kate and William, when there were issues there.
They always do. People always lash out when they think they're being attacked or backed into a corner. I think it's a real problem in society at the moment that people never seem to be able to listen to the other side. We can't have normal conversations about anything without it escalating into arguments.
Scott, it doesn't have to, it is right now, but it needn't be polarising, divisive, right? Can we not? I didn't see this with Princess Diana, may she rest in peace. As far as bombshells go and controversial documentaries, and TV programmes concerning the royals, I cannot think of anything more controversial, the bombshells of the bombshells, than Princess Diana's Panorama interview. I was a kid. Oh gosh, I must have been about 13, 14 when I watched it, and my jaw was open. This is all new information in terms of what she was talking about, in terms of how unhappy she was, the affair, the 3 people in a marriage. And I don't remember seeing the backlash as we're seeing now.
Well, but Claudia-Liza, you may not remember it, but there was a lot of negative press treatment of Diana during the 80s and during the 90s. Of course, she was the people's princess, the darling to start off with. But as there were troubles between her and Charles, and as there were rifts between her and the rest of the court, there was a lot of tabloid press that portrayed her as dim-witted, that portrayed her as being devious. And then after the separation and eventual divorce from Charles, there was a lot of negative press about Diana, especially when she started dating Dodi Fayed, in part because of his background. And so remember another factor, because this all factors into the documentary and Harry and Meghan, because we talk facts here. We're not talking emotion, we talk facts.
Thank you. Let's keep it real and nice.
The night that Princess Diana was killed in Paris, you may remember that her car that she was in was being pursued by paparazzi.
Of course.
So let's take this from the fact of where we are with Harry and Meghan, even before you get to the way that Meghan has been treated in Harry's eyes. Harry, at the age of 12, his mother is killed. In his views, is killed in part because the paps are chasing her. That's an unnecessary death. And he, even then, as a boy, he realizes the way that she's been treated. And he refers to that in the documentary, by the way. He does refer to that when she gave that documentary with Panorama, it might have been obtained through dubious practices by the BBC or by individuals at BBC, but the substance of what she said was correct.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to Meghan, this is the fundamentals of a husband defending a wife who he feels has been unjustly treated. And, before we try to polarize yes versus, yay versus nay, let's be very clear here. This game has been played by elements of the press from the start when Harry was dating Meghan, because it sells papers to whip up controversy. And Harry lays some cards on the table that are very important in the documentary. Now, I want to preface this by saying he never names a member of the royal family by name. He never goes after the Queen. He never goes after his grandfather, Prince Philip. He never goes after his father, Charles. But he says 2 things that are important. First is the difference between the way royals have been treated in the past and in the case of Meghan is because, in his eyes, there's an element of race in it. And I think he's actually right with some of the press that they have used racial innuendo with Meghan, not just the fact that she's an American as well.
What do you think?
And secondly,
sorry, go. Really finish your point, so then I'll go.
And I'd say the second point that's important is that what Harry says is that look, he thinks that members of the family, not all members of the royal family, but some members of the royal family, he says there's an unconscious bias here. There's an unconscious bias here which had been operating against Meghan. And he said, we hope we all can learn from this. So he's trying to find something positive out of all of this. So far from trashing the royal family, I think he's actually trying to find a way back and to actually put the cards on the table, which is that the root cause of this have been the tabloids that both tried to tear down Meghan Markle and now are trying to make more money off of featuring the documentary and tearing Harry and Meghan down again.
Lettice, what do you think?
I definitely disagree with that in parts. I think that this is not a way for him to find his way back. I think what I've seen this as is, when you have an argument with your parents and you might scream at them and say, I hate you, you're just the worst, you walk out, you might slam a few doors. I think, and then you come to regret it later on. But I think what we're seeing right now is that I hate you moment, that lashing out in anger. And I think
which is not. That's what can happen in families, right?
Exactly.
I've just
everyone has got some tough.
All the family coming out and having to deal with all the, who's not talking to who and all of that jazz.
But I think there's such hypocrisy here in what he's doing. His main points are that he wants to protect his wife, he wants to protect his kids. You don't go around protecting your wife and kids from the media, which he is saying is the big bad beast in the room, by creating a 6-part documentary series, which is going to be controversial, by bringing out a book, by doing that Oprah Winfrey interview earlier this year. That is not how you lay low. That's not how you step back from the limelight. And I think there's real hypocrisy.
Lettice, let me ask you a question. Lettice. The press were going to go after Meghan Markle anyway. So do Harry and Meghan remain completely silent and let some elements of the press continue to do that? Or do they try to stake out their ground?
I think
you're saying they should just simply stay silent about all of this.
It's not a case of staying silent. It's a case that they chose to step back from the limelight. They could have chose to remain working law.
Just a little correction, and they've actually come out to say, it's nice to say this as well, they wanted to be part-time. So they didn't actually leave to just turn their back on being members of the royal family completely. In the end, though, I think it was the Queen and the monarchy or the firm, whatever, it was the royal family. He said, actually, no, you can't be part-time. You're going to have to just leave altogether. Yeah. And they did come out to say that they wanted to just spend their time between the UK and America, but it was pushed on them to leave completely.
Exactly. And now they are living in America and they have chosen that life now, whether what happened in between, fine. I also think there's a very strong point that you were making just before, that this isn't just unique to Meghan. What we saw happen with Kate, Camilla was literally the most hated woman in Britain for such a long time. It was awful. And so I think that the way Meghan is handling this is just not very graceful, not very, whether it's right or wrong. One thing I want to point out is at the wedding, everyone loved her. Everyone was so excited about the wedding. The streets were lined with crowds cheering. There were definitely some negative articles. One that was straight out of Compton, I remember very clearly. That was poorly placed. It was a bad article. It should never have been published. But 90% of the media at that time was overjoyed at this sort of modern marriage. We're stepping into the modern world. She was mixed race. She was American. All of these things were in her favour and everyone loved her for them.
Scott.
That's not true. That's not true. On the eve of the wedding, certain tabloids brought in her father to trash Meghan. I remember it vividly, on the eve of the wedding, to take her reputation down. Now, there was a lot of glamour around the wedding. People liked the fact that you had celebrities who came in for it. I think Oprah in for it, Clooney, and all of that. But they went after Meghan before that. And again, Lettice, I got to come back to you on two things. The first here is Camilla's fine now. Everybody's fine about Camilla. Everybody's fine about Kate now. Everybody's fine, apparently, about Prince Andrew, who arguably has been
that I don't think is quite true.
The royal family into disrepute. And so where's the difference here? And you go back to Harry's comment, which is, when this point was put, that you put as well, Lettice, it's different in the case of Meghan because they're going after her in part because of race. And the fact is, you can say they either accept that and live in America and accept the abuse that they'll continue to take because the press will continue to try to do it, or they try to stake out their own ground. Now, again, I'm going to put the question to you. Is it wrong for a husband to defend his wife?
It's certainly not wrong for a husband to defend his wife. If Meghan, we see in the documentary, she was going through things, she was certainly struggling. I think the way they are going about this is what's wrong. I think the way that they are positioning themselves, and often
you can't say that. You're not in their shoes. You haven't suffered that. You can't say that.
No, but everyone in their life has experienced some sort of struggle, some sort of trauma. This is not unique to them.
You personally have been attacked by the tabloids day in and day out, Lettice?
Well, I can't say that people on Twitter are always particularly friendly. I might not have front page
in the tabloids.
news.
in a newspaper which is the #1 circulation online in the world, which is attacked her day after day. You've been attacked by that newspaper as well?
No, I haven't been personally attacked, but I'm also not on that level of influence and seniority, you know. Going into this, Harry is the Prince of England. That was something that was known going into this. And to feign this level of, oh, I didn't know what I was going into and I didn't know who they were and I didn't know how to, you know, curtsy.
Harry's never done that. Harry has volunteered to continue to serve in the royal family. He knows what he's getting into. He saw what happened to his mother. His point is if you want a constructive relationship for all of us around the royal family, you have got to deal with the poison which comes out in attacking individuals if you want them to serve. And that's and remember, there is a member of the royal family who in 2017, soon after they were married, was wearing a brooch which some saw as being very racial in that. I don't know if anybody remembers that incident. So, you know, the fact is that I think you can say, well, they shouldn't do it that way, they shouldn't do it that. I think you get to the fundamental here. When you do that, when you make Harry and Meghan the targets here and say, well, they should be proper about this, you're letting the real people off the hook that have created this situation.
It does sound like the you know, you're saying it's how Harry and Meghan handled it and everything. It does seem the speaking out. Now, look, don't get me wrong, and I'm saying this to you as well, Scott. I'm not saying Harry and Meghan aren't without, you know, haven't maybe taken missteps, right? Handled things. Maybe they could look back and think maybe they could have done things this way, because, you know, at the heart of this, there is a family which has been broken down. Prince Harry's not with his family the way that he ever anticipated he wouldn't be, and I'm sure his mother wanted him to be.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying they're perfect.
No,
what I'm saying is there have been decades-long, centuries-long issues within the royal family which has led to heartbreak, heartache.
Absolutely,
long
definitely.
before.
But I also
Harry
then
and
want to
Meghan
say, if we
joined the royal
put
family.
this on another situation, Matt Hancock. He's also been absolutely lambasted by the press time and time again. His family is out there, his children, that image of him kissing his Gina, his girlfriend now, but his aide at the time. You know, it's not unique for celebrities to be dragged by the media. It's not unique
issue
politicians.
Is, though, he was a politician who broke his own rules during COVID, left his wife and children for another woman.
And I'm not
Meghan Markle just got married. To compare, and this is it, you know, Prince Andrew will be up there, you know, what's Prince Andrew and Harry doing there? Harry, married woman, you know, stuck by his wife. Prince Andrew was friends with not one, but 2 sex offenders. Even forget the allegations and the court case. And to compare Meghan to Matt Hancock, is that a fair
No, I think
comparison?
it's more, I'm saying that it's the media in this situation, and that, you know, they are going to go after you. If it's a good story, that's what they do. They need to make news. And Harry and Meghan sells as a news story. They are, you know, opposed to them. And it also
then call out the media.
Yeah.
Then call out the media. Call out the media for what is effectively a dysfunctional relationship. The fact is, we've got serious issues still in this country, and I've been here for 40 years, about how the press deals with matters which have to do with hierarchy, with the royal family. We have serious problems with how elements of the press deal with race, around not only this issue, but around some very, very important social issues. So call out the press over this. Instead, what happens here is that you get victim shaming and victim blaming. Now, you know, Claudia-Liza is absolutely right. Harry and Meghan have made missteps. They've said they made missteps, and we could talk about it. But the fact is, to turn the spotlight on them raises a serious question, which is, as Claudia-Liza is hinting at, there's problems not with the firm. There's problems with not the Queen, not Prince Philip necessarily, but there are problems with advisors in the palace.
That's
mobilize
really
the press.
Yeah.
And unless you deal with that, we become slaves to just simply talking about all this controversy, and anybody is expendable in that, including in this case Harry and Meghan, because some guys in the media and gals in the media are going to make a profit out of it.
That's such an interesting point. So, watching The Crown, I know it's fictional, but it does give a little bit of an insight into who are really calling the shots. And the first, I didn't watch it properly, but my daughter was just obsessed with it. The first few seasons, seeing how the Queen actually never say in a lot of the things, and even Prince Philip in their marriage, it was the advisors and not just their lives, other members of the royal family, including the Queen's sister. And it was such a tragic life for the Queen's sisters because of the advisors. And if you look at some of the comments, I haven't watched all the 3 episodes yet. I'm just taking my time.
No,
I watched the first one, and from what I've also read is they seem to be taking shots at advisors, not necessarily members of the royal family. Would that be a fair assessment?
I think there's definitely something to be said about how the royal household is being managed in the situations, and the fact that a lot of their old staff have had to sign these NDAs. And just last week they were speaking to the Times.
Isn't that a normal thing for all members of the royal family signing NDAs?
Well, I'm not sure about if all of them have to, but I knew very specifically they did. And now they're speaking out saying that they want to be able to tell their side of the story.
But that's the case with all members of the royal family. In terms of the household, they have to, they tend to sign.
But I think that's a silencing sort of mechanism, and we're only really getting one side of the story here. This is people who've worked with them time and time again, and I think the Royal Palace, if they're refusing to comment, we are only hearing this one side of the story, and I think it's very important that we get both sides of this story, whether that comes from the palace, whether that comes from the staff who used to work for them being able to speak out on their behalf, whatever it is. I think it needs to be a more balanced argument.
All right, well, this argument, calm discussion, as I'm trying to make it go in that direction, will continue. I am very, very sure. Actually, it was just all Harry and Meghan, right? But there's just so much. I think there's so much to say. So, that is it. Lettice and Scott, good talking to you both. Thank you so much for being on the show today.